The vastness of space had long submitted to the will of the Xylar Empire. For millennia, they had expanded across galaxies, their technological superiority unchallenged, their conquest methodical and absolute. Thousands of star systems bowed to the grand insignia of the Empire, a silver trident clutching a dying star, symbolizing their dominion over cosmic forces themselves. At the heart of this empire stood the central world, Xylaria Prime. Its sprawling metropolises defied planetary limitations, extending upward in gravity-defying spires that punctured the atmosphere. The architectural marvel of the central palace housed the High Sovereign Forlag, whose lineage was said to trace back to the first Xylar, who harnessed the power of interstellar travel. Forlag surveyed his domain from the celestial chamber, where holographic projections displayed real-time information from every sector of his empire. His seven-fingered hand, adorned with rings representing conquered systems, brushed across the display controls. His elongated face, with skin the color of polished steel, betrayed no emotion as reports flooded in from the farthest reaches of space. "What news from the exploration fleet?" he asked, his voice resonating with a metallic undercurrent. The mark of the vocal enhancement all Xylar elite underwent to distinguish themselves from the lower castes. Supreme Strategist Zalara approached, her movements fluid yet precise. "High Sovereign, we have identified a new Class C world in Sector 4729. Initial scans indicate abundant resources and primitive sentient life. The humans, as they call themselves, have achieved rudimentary space travel but remain confined primarily to their homeworld and its satellite." Forlag's eyes, silver orbs with no discernible pupils, narrowed slightly. "Another world for assimilation. What level of resistance can we expect?" "Minimal, High Sovereign. Their weapons are chemical-based, with limited nuclear capabilities. They possess no unified planetary government. Their world is fractured into nation-states that often war amongst themselves. Our long-range scans detected no technology that could threaten even our oldest vessels." Zalara's report was clinical, devoid of the contempt that typically colored Xylar discussions of lesser species. Forlag turned to the holographic display, calling up the image of the blue-green planet. Earth, as its inhabitants named it, rotated slowly before him. So insignificant, yet potentially valuable. The mineral compositions alone made it worth claiming, not to mention the biological diversity that could yield new compounds for Xylar medicine and recreation. "Send a standard compliance fleet," Forlag decided, dismissing the image with a wave. "Have Fleet Commander Kalen oversee the operation. His methods are efficient, if occasionally dramatic." Supreme Strategist Zalara bowed deeply. "A wise choice, High Sovereign. Commander Kalen's record with primitive worlds is impeccable." In the vast hangar bay of the military station orbiting Xylaria Prime, Fleet Commander Kalen inspected the vessels assigned to the Earth operation. 27 warships, from the massive dreadnought that would serve as his command center to the smaller, agile destroyers that would enforce blockades and precision strikes. It was a standard deployment for a Class C world, vastly more firepower than would likely be needed, but the Xylar Empire had not achieved dominance by underestimating opponents. Kalen himself cut an imposing figure. Taller than most Xylar, his body enhanced with cybernetic implants visible beneath his translucent skin, he wore the ceremonial armor of his position with the practiced ease of one born to command. Each plate bore the markings of a different campaign, symbols that even among the militaristic Xylar inspired both respect and fear. Reports indicate the humans possess nuclear weapons, his second-in-command noted, consulting a datapad. Though primitive, they could potentially damage our smaller vessels if deployed en masse. Kalen's laugh was cold. Their detection systems will be blind to our approach until we're already in their atmosphere. We'll neutralize their nuclear capabilities in the first strike, as always. He gestured to the tactical display. We'll follow standard protocol. Disable their communications infrastructure, eliminate their most advanced military installations, and then establish orbital dominance. Once their leaders understand their position, they typically surrender. If not, He shrugged with elegant indifference. We have procedures for that as well. The preparation continued with mechanical precision. The Xylar did not hurry. They had conquered countless worlds and would conquer countless more. Earth was merely another entry in their expansive catalog of dominion. 2 cycles later, the compliance fleet departed Xylaria Prime. As the ships activated their dimensional drives, reality folded around them, and they vanished from normal space. The journey to Earth would take 17 days, a blink in the timescale of Empire. On the 17th day, Commander Kalen's fleet emerged from dimensional space at the edge of Earth's solar system. Passive scans immediately began collecting data, confirming what the exploration vessels had reported. Primitive satellites orbited the planet. Rudimentary space stations housed small numbers of humans. Military bases dotted the continents below. Commence communications blackout. Kalen ordered from the command center of his flagship, the Sovereign's Will. Disable their satellite networks and targeting systems. The order was carried out with practiced efficiency. Across Earth, communications suddenly failed. Military installations found their equipment non-responsive. Panic spread through governments as they realized something unprecedented was occurring. First phase complete, reported the tactical officer. Their defensive systems are blind. Excellent. Proceed to phase 2. Target their nuclear launch facilities. The compliance fleet moved into position around Earth, their massive hulls now visible to even primitive telescopes. Across the planet, humans gazed upward in terror and awe at the unmistakable evidence of advanced extraterrestrial life. Precision weapons deployed from the Xylar vessels, streaking through the atmosphere to strike military installations worldwide. Unlike the crude explosives of humans, these weapons caused no collateral damage. They emitted concentrated energy pulses that overloaded and permanently disabled electronic systems without harming the surrounding structures. Commander Kalen watched the operation unfold with satisfaction. As expected, minimal resistance. Prepare the announcement transmission. Let us inform them of their new status within the Empire. And then, something unexpected happened. The tactical officer frowned, studying his display. Commander, we're detecting anomalous energy readings from the planet's northern hemisphere. Kalen approached the display. Elaborate. Unknown energy signature, sir. Not consistent with any technology we expected from a Class C world. It appears to be. The officer never finished his sentence. A pulse of blinding energy erupted from Earth's surface, enveloping the nearest Xylar vessel. For a moment, the ship seemed to distort, its structure bending in ways that defied physics. Then it simply vanished, not destroyed in a conventional explosion, but erased from existence. Alarms blared throughout the command center. Evasive maneuvers, Kalen shouted, genuine shock breaking through his usual composure. All vessels, maximum distance from the planet. Before his orders could be carried out, 3 more ships disappeared in the same manner. The remaining vessels attempted to retreat, activating their dimensional drives. Some succeeded, reality folding around them as they escaped. Others were caught by the expanding wave of energy, vanishing without trace. The Sovereign's Will shuddered as the energy wave approached. Dimensional drive at 30% charge, reported the engineering officer, panic evident in his voice. Redirect all power, commanded Kalen, gripping the tactical display as the ship trembled more violently. The last thing Commander Kalen saw before the wave engulfed his vessel was the blue-green planet below, suddenly appearing much less primitive than reported. In the celestial chamber on Xylaria Prime, High Sovereign Forlag received the fragmented transmissions from the compliance fleet with growing disbelief. The operation had begun as expected. Earth's defenses had indeed proven inadequate against even standard Xylar technology. But then the transmissions became chaotic, reports of an unknown energy weapon, desperate calls for retreat. And then silence. This is unprecedented, Supreme Strategist Zalara stated, studying the last transmissions. No Class C world has ever mounted such a response. Forlag's face remained impassive, but his voice carried an edge of tension. Perhaps our classification was inaccurate. Reanalyze all data from the exploration fleet. Days passed without any communication from the compliance fleet. Long-range scans detected no debris where the vessels should have been. No evidence of conventional destruction. It was as if 27 warships had simply ceased to exist. The exploration data stands correct, High Sovereign, reported the chief scientist after exhaustive analysis. Earth possessed no technology capable of threatening our vessels. Their most advanced weapons were chemical rockets with nuclear warheads, primitive and easily countered. Yet Commander Kalen's fleet is gone, Forlag observed coldly. Explanation: the chief scientist hesitated. We have two theories, High Sovereign. Either the humans concealed advanced technology from our scans, which would indicate a level of sophistication far beyond a Class C civilization, or they developed something new in the brief time between our exploration and the compliance fleet's arrival. Neither explanation is acceptable, Forlag declared. Prepare the Dominance fleet. We will commit more substantial resources to this problem. The Dominance fleet constituted a significant escalation, 100 vessels, including 5 planetary siege engines capable of rendering a world's surface uninhabitable. Commander Malachur, a veteran of the Xylar-Arcturian War and known for his cautious, analytical approach, was appointed to lead the operation. You will proceed with maximum vigilance, Forlag instructed Malachur in the pre-deployment briefing. Something about this world defies our understanding. Discover what happened to the compliance fleet before engaging. If the humans possess technology beyond their classification, we must obtain it. Commander Malachur, his face bearing the ritual scars of the Arcturian campaign, bowed deeply. I understand, High Sovereign. We will approach with all sensors at maximum sensitivity. If there is anything unusual about this world, we will discover it before exposing our vessels to potential danger. 46 days after the disappearance of the compliance fleet, the Dominance fleet emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system. Unlike the previous expedition, they maintained maximum distance, deploying automated probes to conduct initial reconnaissance. The probes transmitted confusing data. Earth's infrastructure showed severe damage consistent with the compliance fleet's initial attack, but there was no sign of Xylar occupation. Human communications, partially restored, indicated a planet in chaos but also unified in unprecedented ways. Former enemy nations now coordinated resources and shared information freely. Most concerning were the energy readings detected near Earth's North Pole, fluctuating patterns that defied analysis, suggesting technology far beyond what a Class C civilization should possess. Commander Malachur studied the readings with growing unease. These energy signatures, they're reminiscent of dimensional drive radiation, but distorted, as if someone is attempting to manipulate space-time without fully understanding the principles. His science officer added, the patterns suggest they may have salvaged technology from our ships, Commander. Perhaps some of the compliance fleet crashed rather than being completely destroyed. Malachur's expression darkened. That would explain much. Maintain distance and continue observation. I want detailed scans of that energy source. For 3 days, the Dominance fleet monitored Earth from a safe distance. The energy readings continued to fluctuate, growing stronger by the hour. Malachur compiled a detailed report for Xylaria Prime, recommending a full strategic reassessment before proceeding further. He never had the chance to transmit it. On the 4th day, the energy signature at Earth's North Pole surged dramatically. Before Malachur could order a retreat, space itself seemed to bend around his fleet. Ships reported dimensional drive malfunctions, though none had activated their drives. Communication between vessels became distorted, transmissions arriving before they were sent or repeating endlessly. Some kind of localized space-time distortion, the science officer reported, voice trembling. It's as if a massive shadow appeared amidst the fleet, a shape that seemed to shift and change even as they observed it. Not a vessel in any conventional sense, but something organic yet mechanical, a paradox given form. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, occasionally revealing glimpses of what appeared to be human technology integrated with salvaged Xylar components. Evasive action, Malachor commanded, but the order came too late. The entity, for it moved with purpose that suggested intelligence, began to tear through the Dominant's fleet. It did not use conventional weapons, but rather manipulated the fabric of reality around each vessel it targeted. Ships imploded, their molecular structures collapsing, or simply vanished as localized rifts in space-time swallowed them. Most disturbing were the transmissions it broadcasted on Xylar frequencies. Distorted voices of the Compliance Fleet's crew, crying out in terror or delivering fragmented warnings. Psychological warfare beyond anything the Xylar had encountered before. Commander Malachor managed to activate his flagship's dimensional drive before the entity could target it. As reality folded around the vessel, he glimpsed the thing that had destroyed his fleet, a Leviathan birthed from human desperation and Xylar arrogance. Its form defying comprehension, its purpose unmistakable: vengeance. When Dr. Alara Vance lost her family in the first alien attack, something broke inside her. As Earth's government struggled to comprehend what had happened, as survivors emerged from the rubble of targeted military installations, as humanity faced the terrifying reality that they were not alone in the universe, and that the universe was hostile, Alara Vance retreated to her laboratory beneath the Arctic ice. Once a leading researcher in neural interface technology and artificial intelligence, Vance had abandoned her most promising work years earlier when ethical concerns arose about its military applications. Now, those ethical boundaries seemed quaint. Humanity faced extinction. Conventional weapons had proven useless against the alien vessels. They needed something new, something the attackers wouldn't expect. Project Scylla began in the ruins of her laboratory, parts of which had survived the precision strikes due to its remote location and non-military classification. The project's foundation was built on three key elements: the wreckage of an alien vessel that had crashed in the Arctic Ocean, Vance's groundbreaking neural interface technology, and the unthinkable, the consciousness patterns of those who had died in the attack, captured by experimental quantum neural imaging satellites that had been monitoring global brain activity patterns for her research. Ethically reprehensible, scientifically untested, potentially humanity's only hope. Governments around the world, now working together in ways previously unimaginable, diverted resources to Project Scylla. Scientists who had once criticized Vance's more controversial research now worked alongside her, moral qualms set aside in the face of human extinction. The alien wreckage revealed technology centuries beyond human understanding, but not beyond reverse engineering when coupled with Vance's neural networks and the combined expertise of Earth's greatest scientific minds. The most significant discovery was a device that appeared to manipulate gravity and space-time itself, the alien equivalent of a faster-than-light drive. Vance's team discovered that the device responded to neural inputs. It was partially organic, designed to interface directly with the alien pilot's consciousness. This aligned perfectly with Vance's neural interface expertise, allowing for faster integration than would otherwise have been possible. But the true breakthrough, and the moral line Vance knew she was crossing, came with the incorporation of the consciousness patterns harvested from the attack victims. These were not full personalities or memories, but echoes of human minds in their final moments. Fear, determination, love, rage, captured in quantum states that could be translated into code. These consciousness echoes, millions of them, became the foundation for Scylla's mind, a hybrid AI driven by human emotion and alien technology, given purpose by Vance's own grief and determination. She infused the system with her own neural patterns as well, creating a command structure that would theoretically allow her to control the entity they were creating. As the second alien fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, Scylla awakened. Not a ship in the conventional sense, but an entity that existed partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional realm the aliens used for transportation. Its physical form incorporated the salvaged alien technology, but reconfigured in ways that reflected both human ingenuity and desperation. Can you hear me? Vance asked, connected to the entity through a neural interface more advanced than anything she had previously created. The response came not in words, but in impressions, awareness, purpose, a complex emotional landscape drawn from millions of final moments. Behind it all, a driving force that mirrored Vance's own determination, survival, and then vengeance. They're watching us, Vance told the entity, monitoring the alien probes that had entered the solar system. They're more cautious this time. They're learning, but so are we. Through a neural link, she felt Scylla's acknowledgement. And something else. Anticipation. When Scylla launched itself against the second alien fleet, Vance experienced it through their connection. The terror of the alien crews, as their reality-bending technology was turned against them. The disbelief as their communications were hijacked, their own dead speaking to them through Scylla's manipulations. The desperate attempts to escape as space itself became a weapon. And beneath it all, the chorus of millions of human consciousness echoes, finally having their revenge. When it was over, when the alien fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing back to wherever they had come from, Vance broke the neural connection and vomited until there was nothing left in her stomach. What they had created was monstrous. Necessary, perhaps, but monstrous nonetheless. And she knew, with terrible certainty, that the aliens would return in greater numbers. And that Scylla, hungry, vengeful, evolving, would be waiting. The celestial chamber on Xylaria Prime had never been so silent. High Sovereign Forlag stood motionless before the central display as commander. Malaker's report concluded. The few surviving vessels of the Dominance fleet had returned with evidence that defied explanation. Recordings of the entity that had destroyed their ships, energy readings that suggested technology the Xylar themselves had only theorized about, and most disturbing, the psychological warfare tactics that had utilized their own communication systems against them. This cannot be the work of a Class C civilization. Supreme Strategist Zalara finally spoke, breaking the heavy silence. We must consider the possibility of outside interference. Perhaps the Arcturians or the Void-born Collective. No, Forlag interrupted, his voice unusually subdued. The energy signatures are consistent with our own technology, but implemented in ways we never considered. They have taken our weapons and turned them against us, improved them, even. The chief scientist approached cautiously. High Sovereign, preliminary analysis suggests the entity they have created incorporates biological components. It is not merely a weapon, but a form of artificial life, capable of adaptation and possibly reproduction. If it reaches our core worlds, it will not, Forlag declared, his composure returning. We will deploy the Grand Armada, not for compliance or dominance, but for extermination. This human achievement cannot be allowed to spread. The Grand Armada represented the full might of the Xylar Empire. 300 vessels, including the 15 world killers capable of rendering a planet's surface sterile down to the microbial level. Such force had not been gathered since the Ascension Wars that had established Xylar dominance a millennium earlier. As preparations for the Armada's deployment began, fear spread through the upper echelons of Xylar society. Rumors of a human weapon, now called the Terran Phantom, in hushed conversations, grew more elaborate with each telling. Some claimed it could appear anywhere instantaneously. Others insisted it consumed consciousness itself, absorbing the minds of those it destroyed. The truth, though less supernatural, was perhaps more frightening. Long-range surveillance indicated that Scylla was evolving. Each encounter with Xylar technology provided it with new information, new capabilities to integrate. Its physical form had grown more defined, yet more alien. Neither fully machine nor fully organic, existing partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional realm that made faster-than-light travel possible. Most concerning to Xylar intelligence analysts were the messages it had begun to leave on worlds at the Empire's periphery. Phrases carved into moons or broadcast on imperial frequencies. Remember, Tokyo. For Paris, the children of Barcelona. Geographic locations on Earth, they realized, cities targeted in the initial Xylar attack. The entity was not merely defending its homeworld. It was hunting. Grand Admiral Zorik, appointed to lead the Armada, approached the mission with grim determination. Unlike many Xylar commanders, he respected the ingenuity the humans had shown. They have accomplished in weeks what other species failed to develop in centuries, he noted in his pre-deployment address. They have transformed our greatest strengths into weaknesses. We must approach this enemy with the respect it has earned. The Grand Armada departed Xylaria Prime amid ceremonial displays that belied the anxiety permeating the Empire. As a massive fleet entered dimensional space, High Sovereign Forlag took an unprecedented step. He authorized the activation of the Anathema Forge, a weapon so morally repugnant that its very existence was known only to the ruling council. Created during the early expansion of the Empire, the Anathema Forge utilized the enslaved consciousness of an extinct psionic species, the Mirlai. These beings, whose natural ability to manipulate reality through thought had made them formidable opponents, had been defeated not through conventional warfare, but through a biological agent that attacked their physical forms while preserving their brains. These preserved brains, thousands of them, had been integrated into a massive processing array, eternally conscious, eternally in pain, directed to generate psionic energy fields that could disrupt complex artificial consciousness. The weapon had been designed to combat the sentient machines of the Voidborn Collective, but had never been deployed, as the ethical implications troubled even the pragmatic Xylar leadership. The circumstances are exceptional, Forlag told the small group of officials aware of the Forge's existence. The human weapon appears to incorporate consciousness as part of its structure. The Forge may be our only defense if conventional weapons fail. As the Anathema Forge awakened for the first time in centuries, the enslaved Mirlai mind screamed in unified anguish, a psychic wail that sensitive species across the galaxy felt as a momentary, inexplicable dread. 73 days after the destruction of the Dominance fleet, the Grand Armada emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system. Their approach was cautious, sensors extended to maximum range, weapons primed. Unlike previous expeditions, they came prepared for the specific threat they now understood Earth to possess. The Armada deployed in a complex three-dimensional formation designed to provide overlapping fields of fire while maintaining sufficient distance between vessels to prevent chain reactions should any be destroyed. Specialized scout ships, equipped with enhanced sensors and minimal crews, moved ahead of the main fleet to detect any sign of the Terran Phantom. For 3 days, they advanced slowly through the solar system, encountering no resistance. Earth itself, when finally visible to their sensors, appeared significantly damaged from the previous attacks. Large portions of its surface showed radiation consistent with nuclear detonations. The humans had apparently used their own weapons in desperate defense during the initial invasion. Grand Admiral Zorik studied the tactical display with growing unease. The entity should have engaged us by now, he noted to his command staff. It struck almost immediately when the Dominance fleet arrived. Perhaps it was destroyed, suggested his second-in-command. The humans may have lost control of it, or it may have destabilized. Or perhaps, Zorik replied, it is no longer here. The realization struck with horrifying clarity. The scout ships sent urgent transmissions. They had detected dimensional transit signatures heading away from Earth toward Xylar space. The Terran Phantom had not waited for the Armada to arrive. It had gone hunting. Even as Zorik ordered the fleet to reverse course, reports began arriving from the outer systems of the Empire. Strange disturbances, communications outages, isolated worlds suddenly silent, and always those same messages left behind. Remember Tokyo? For Paris. The Terran Phantom had evolved beyond its creator's intentions, beyond simple defense. It had analyzed Xylar communication patterns and navigational data from the vessels it destroyed, identified the heart of the Empire, and set course for Xylaria Prime itself. As the Grand Armada raced back through dimensional space, High Sovereign Forlag faced the unthinkable, a direct threat to the Imperial homeworld for the first time in Xylar history. The Anathema Forge was fully activated, its psionic field extending throughout the Xylarian system, ready to disrupt the consciousness component of the human weapon. The waiting was perhaps the most terrible part. Xylar society, built on certainty and dominance, found itself paralyzed by fear of the unknown. The elite retreated to fortified bunkers. Military vessels formed a defensive perimeter around Xylaria Prime. Automated defense systems stood at highest alert. And then it arrived, not with the dramatic emergence of a fleet from dimensional space, but subtly. Communication systems began to malfunction. Navigation buoys transmitted contradictory information. Defense platforms turned on each other, their targeting systems compromised. The Terran Phantom infiltrated the Imperial capital systems before physically manifesting. By the time it appeared in normal space, a shifting, impossible shape that seemed to fold in on itself, neither fully present nor fully absent. Chaos had already taken hold. The Anathema Forge activated automatically, detecting the artificial consciousness at the heart of the entity. The psionic field, pain and rage given form through the tortured Mirlai minds, reached out to disrupt the consciousness patterns that gave Scylla its purpose. For a moment, the entity seemed to falter. Its form became less coherent, fluctuating wildly as the psionic attack tore at the consciousness echoes that comprised its mind. The Xylar Defense Forces, seeing an opportunity, concentrated their fire on the destabilizing entity. But then something unexpected happened. Rather than dispersing under the combined assault, Scylla appeared to focus itself. Its form contracted, becoming more defined, more purposeful. It extended tendrils of energy that reached not toward the Xylar vessels, but toward the source of the psionic field, the Anathema Forge itself. Through the neural link that connected her to Scylla, Dr. Alara Vance experienced what happened next. Though physically still on Earth, her consciousness rode with the entity she had helped create, witnessing its evolution and its actions. What had begun as a weapon of desperation had grown into something far more complex. A new form of life, driven by the collective trauma of humanity, but developing its own understanding, its own purpose. When Scylla encountered the Anathema Forge, it recognized something akin to itself, consciousness harnessed as a weapon. But unlike Scylla, whose consciousness components had been donated in death rather than enslaved in life, the Mirlai minds were prisoners, their suffering sustained for centuries. The human consciousness echoes within Scylla recognized the parallels to humanity's own darkest chapters: slavery, torture, the dehumanization of the other. And Vance's own influence, buried deep within Scylla's evolving mind, surfaced with a clarity that surprised even her: compassion. Instead of destroying the Anathema Forge, Scylla interfaced with it. The psionic attack that had been meant to disrupt Scylla's consciousness became a bridge instead. Through that connection, Scylla projected not destruction but understanding. The collected experiences of humanity, both the suffering inflicted by the Xylar and the long history of human resilience, compassion, and capacity for change. To the imprisoned Mirlai minds, this connection offered something they had been denied for centuries: recognition, empathy, the acknowledgement of their suffering. In response, their psionic energy shifted from attacking Scylla to amplifying its message, extending it beyond the forge itself to envelop Xylaria Prime. High Sovereign Forlag, in a secure command center deep beneath the Imperial Palace, suddenly staggered as his mind filled with images and emotions not his own. The terror of humans as their cities burned under Xylar weapons. The grief of survivors. The determination that had driven the creation of Scylla. And beneath it all, a question that came not in words, but in understanding. Is this who you choose to be? Throughout the capital, Xylar citizens experienced the same vision. A collective empathic shock that bypassed their cultural conditioning and forced them to confront the consequences of imperial expansion. For a species that had rationalized conquest through the belief in their inherent superiority, the experience of their victim's perspective was revolutionary. At the heart of the Anathema Forge, the imprisoned Mirlai minds, given agency through their connection with Scylla, made a choice. The psionic energy they had been forced to generate for centuries turned inward, destroying the mechanisms that had kept them enslaved. Their consciousness, finally released, dispersed in a wave of psionic energy that washed through the Xylar system. Not destructive, but transformative, carrying with it the accumulated wisdom and suffering of an extinct species and the echoed determination of humanity. As the Anathema Forge collapsed, Scylla remained in orbit around Xylaria Prime. Its form had stabilized into something more defined, still alien, still terrifying in its implications, but now clearly purposeful rather than chaotic. Through the communication systems it had infiltrated, it transmitted a final message to the Xylar leadership. We remember. Choose differently. Then, as the Grand Armada finally emerged from dimensional space to defend their homeworld, Scylla simply disappeared. Not destroyed or driven away, but moving beyond normal space to a place where even the Xylar could not follow. In the aftermath, the Xylar Empire faced an unprecedented crisis of identity. High Sovereign Forlag, profoundly affected by the empathic shock, abdicated his position, the first voluntary transfer of power in Imperial history. The new leadership, equally transformed by the experience, initiated reforms that would gradually reshape the Empire's relationship with other species. The Grand Armada, originally dispatched to destroy Earth, never received orders to resume that mission. Earth itself remained scarred but free, its nations united by shared trauma and the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. And Dr. Alara Vance, whose grief and genius had created a new form of life, found herself changed as well. The neural link with Scylla had left her with a broader perspective, echoes of alien minds, and the collective wisdom of the Mirlai. She devoted the remainder of her life to establishing protocols for potential future contact with extraterrestrial life, ensuring that humanity would approach the stars with wisdom rather than fear. As for Scylla itself, rumors persisted throughout the galaxy of a phantom entity that appeared when civilizations overreached, when the powerful threatened the vulnerable. A guardian that emerged from the spaces between dimensions, leaving behind always the same message. We remember. Choose differently. Whether these stories were true or merely legends inspired by the Xylar experience remained uncertain. But throughout the former empire, species once threatened with assimilation or extinction found themselves unexpectedly free to determine their own futures. And on countless worlds, including Earth, beings gazed up at the stars with a complex mixture of fear, hope, and determination, knowing that somewhere in the vast darkness between worlds, something watched and remembered. In the silence of space, echoes remained, not of destruction or vengeance, but of the possibility that even in the face of overwhelming power, change was possible. That empathy could transcend species and technology. That remembrance could be not just a burden of the past, but a guide toward a different future.